Welcome to the B2B Digital Marketer Podcast, a podcast helping you to end your struggle with digital marketing, helping you to pave a new and better path to target and capture your ideal customer. Each week, we teach you how insiders and experts debunk the dreary and become engines of innovation. Now, here's your host, Jim Rembach.
Okay, B2B DNA. I'm really fortunate to have the opportunity to talk to somebody who's been doing something for a long time that actually has the perception of not being around for a while that can have some significant impact in your digital B2B marketing activity. I have David Ubeda, and he is in the Chicagoland area. He's on the northwest side. I grew up on the southeast side.
Oh, nice.
And so, but I'm glad he's here. David,
Small world.
Yes. So if you could give a little bit of background about the work that you are doing in context of a B2B digital marketer who has that complex sell.
Yeah, man. And again, thanks for having me. Always good to connect with fellow like-minded entrepreneurs. So B2B companies, so most people don't know what B2B means, right? So that's business to business, right? They'll reach out to us. And usually they reach out to us for one of two reasons. One, they're in panic mode because they're not able to generate enough business, and they've heard that LinkedIn is a great platform to do that. But then you've got the other side where they're doing well, perhaps in other platforms, and then they want to try LinkedIn out because again, they've heard that it's a good platform to generate business, which it is. You've got 600 million plus opportunities, people that are on there. You've got millions of people in decision-making roles, and so what we've corrected or what we've refined over the past 5 years is a strategy that will help our clients stand out in a very noisy platform like LinkedIn. As you know, the whole, hey, I can, sell your services online or on LinkedIn. We get, several of those hits every day, which I love to read. But the whole point for us is we're not interested in necessarily trying to sell anything per se. Our philosophy is to get quality at bats for our clients leveraging LinkedIn. And that's all we can ask for. So we're not trying to sell your product. We're not in the position to do that. We shouldn't, because we don't know what your product or service is, right? But it's more so making sure that business owners have a quality at bat. Our strategy vets potential clients 3 times before, and they don't even know they're being vetted, but it vets them 3 times before they even do one of 2 things. They'll either schedule a call or to find out more about what you're doing, or they'll literally say, hey, you know what, I would love to learn more. Can you give me a call either today or tomorrow? Or they'll literally just give you the phone number. I remember the first time when one of my clients sent me a text message, hey, this lady just sent me her phone number. What do I do? I'm like, call her. Call her. But I laughed about it because he was probably not used to, seeing such results that quickly, because it really is very simple. I'm just going to just share that with you, because the first year that we actually went into business, we generated 19 sales appointments for the entire year. Okay, for the entire year. And then last year in 2019, we generated for our business, not our clients, for our business, 426, quality at bats. And so, the long and short of it is that our strategy is what put us in this position. And that's why B2B companies reach out to us. They hear about it either on podcasts or any of our, referral partners, things like that.
Well, as you're talking though, David, I start thinking about what I run into with my clients for the type of work that I'm doing, and I'm not doing what you're doing. We do other types of, interactive, educational, type of knowledge opportunities. So it is more of that companies are coming to us in order to be able to say, hey, can you help us with the whole nurturing process and the discovery process? Because I not only have a complex, sale process, I have a complex product overall, right? It's not as simple as, it's just this particular thing and it's easy to communicate.
Yeah.
But I start getting the very clear understanding that you're not talking about the quick hit and the quick lead and the quick turnaround and then something that's transactional. You're talking about, a consistent, diligent, ongoing, continually iterative type of process, aren't you?
Yes. So, to give you like a high level view, the fifth step out of our 5 points before we even go live with a campaign for a client, it's very thorough, man. When I first started, I thought it would just be, let me go ahead and get an automated tool and just blast everyone. Right? That's what I thought, was the way to go. But the reality is, no, that's just noise. And, our society has, they get hit 3,000 times a day, research indicates, with sales pitches, and we become numb to them in a sense. So we turn that stuff off as soon as it even smells or looks salesy. It's like next. So that's not what we try to do at all. It's more so, hey, adding value at first. And then, the word nurture is very common in our space. I like the word nurture, but I also like the word connecting, right? And you can't connect to someone which would lead to nurturing them if you don't know who your ideal client is. And that's the first thing that any of our campaigns go. And I'm sure people have, gone through maybe some of that process, but we have a specific tool within our strategy that helps us get crystal clear with who your ideal client is. And then what happens is that we both gain that clarity for the purpose of targeting, right? So the whole longevity, this whole quick hit thing, can it happen? Yes. Can you turn a prospect into a client with one 30-minute phone call and make thousands of dollars off of that? Yeah, that happens all the time. But one of the reasons why we want to stay small is the relationship piece. We want to continue to develop a culture where our clients are seen as partners, and we want to serve them well in the process. And you can't do that with the expectation of, hey, we're going to just go ahead and do a quick hit. It doesn't usually work. Take the time. Even from a statistical standpoint, like the fifth piece being email outreach, most people give up after the first or second time. But our research indicates it's got to be at least 12 touches, at least. And research says, hey, after the 7th or 8th time, no one is there. So you're the only one on the radar. So guess who's going to get the apple at that point? So it's just understanding that it's the long play, doing it right, having systems in place to help you do that, and keep you in the forefront with a potential client. So,
well, and you bring up some really interesting points that for me, studying a little bit more about that whole entire process and some of the restrictions that come into play, and what some of those people who you get 5 pitches to help you with LinkedIn marketing are sending you every single day that I receive, that there are some limits in regard to automating certain things on the LinkedIn platform that can get you banned. A lot of people don't realize that. They don't necessarily advertise it; they just ban you. So you have to be extremely careful. And then, so when you start talking about doing all of that, you also can't, say, okay, well, I'll just avoid it and I'll just create, a particular profile or create something and then use that. You can't do that either. You will get found out.
Yeah, for 5 years, we've never had any of our profiles banned because we know the rules of the game. And honestly, if the way we see it, it's not how many messages or outbound messages you send. Because if you're sending out 200 or 300 messages a day, for example, then you probably need to rewrite your ad. You need to rewrite the content of your message. You don't know who your ideal client is. You're wasting your time and theirs, to be quite honest. So if the reality is 50 messages, maybe 100 in a day is more than enough to pack your calendar with quality at bats if your messaging, your targeting is spot on. If it is not, then you're going to be tempted to just send a slew of messages more because no one's responding, but it's because your messaging is shoddy. Your targeting isn't refined.
Well, as you're talking, and I have this discussion with so many people, is that, critical importance of the entire planning process. And, I was just having a client with the work that I do, a discussion about the different metrics that come into play based on our engagement. So if you think about what I have to do now versus what I had to do, some of the metrics that I may have looked at in the past that are maybe even driving some of my compensation and incentives and, my review process are not the same metrics that we have to use now. I mean, it's changed.
Yeah, very true. And we rely heavily on metrics, like any other business should, simply because it's not an emotional piece, right? It's just the numbers, it's just the math, and we know where the open rates should be. We know where specific pieces of information in terms of percentages should be. Should they be at 10%? Should they be at 30%? Whatever the case is. We have to have them in place and we have to follow them. It's not personal. And then once you discover the bottleneck, then things kind of just, blow up in a good way.
Well, as you're talking too, I start thinking about, obviously your passion is leveraging LinkedIn in order, get into the sales process for marketing and hand over that what I refer to as more of a sales qualified lead versus a marketing qualified lead. It's further down the funnel, right?
Yep.
But I start thinking about things that oftentimes, and especially now when the world has kind of changed for people who are used to be doing the community face-to-face and the regional and then the national face-to-face types of events and are not able to do that, is there's some things that have become quite overrated in regards to digital B2B marketing. What's something that kind of stands out to you as being quite overrated right now?
What's overrated right now, in my opinion, is blogging on LinkedIn. Simply because, there's nothing wrong with adding value to the marketplace, right? But if your intention is to try to, close business by, blogging every day on a LinkedIn page, could you see some success? Yeah, sure. But for me, it's overrated. We've never, like last year, 426 sales appointments for our business. How many times did we blog? 0, right? 0, because I'd rather use that time and that energy in reaching out and establishing connections and relationships with folks who we know we can serve. And that's the bottom line. We already know who our ideal client is, right? We vibe with them. I love waking up in the morning and knowing that I have like the coolest clients ever, simply because we're just on the same page and we're striving for the same outcome. So I think right now blogging for me would be overrated in terms of the time it takes and just, the intention. With all the noise out there, everyone seems to be blogging, but you really don't even have to do that.
That's quite interesting and quite and really, contradictive to other folks who we've had on the show who are saying, good quality content, a lot of good quality content, consistent good quality content. And you're saying, not if you want to make a sale.
Yeah. Here's the thing, like it works if you're B2C, like content is super important, but B2B, think about it. We both own our companies, and do we want to sit there and read a 40-minute, article on something? No, man, just give it to me straight. It all goes back to the psychology of, the four personalities in a sense. So most entrepreneurs are thinkers first, and thinkers are not interested in the fluff, man. It's like, hey, just give me the skinny, give me the details so that I can make a decision. So if you already know that, and you know that your space like LinkedIn is full of thinkers, don't go in there trying to be all super happy and trying to give people 40 minutes worth of content. It's not going to serve them or get you any closer to determining whether or not you can serve them or help them with their problem.
Okay, so when I start thinking about the whole issue of the world changing and the new realities, I start thinking about the whole thing that you just kind of alluded to, is that, how do I make a difference? How do I stand out? How do I, do that? So if you were to say, that there was something that somebody could do in order to be that, one that is doing the disrupting, what would it be?
That's a good question. I would say for LinkedIn specifically, one of the steps that we incorporate in our strategy is optimization of your profile. And optimization includes making sure that you're utilizing the space, that you're communicating, that your communication is all about clearly, concisely communicating to your ideal client. You get it. You understand what they're struggling with. Most people make the mistake on going with their LinkedIn profiles, and they're talking about how great they are. They have great hair. They've accomplished this award and that award. I'm halfway done with a doctorate degree. It's not on there because it's not going to help them land more business. Like, who cares? To be quite honest, it's not going to help them. It's just a personal goal that I've had, and I don't need to, flaunt that because it's irrelevant. My ideal client is interested in generating more business. Why? Because at the heart, sometimes they're struggling with payroll. Sometimes they're struggling or recovering from a bad marketing, experience. Sometimes, they're worrying about putting food on their own tables, right? The consistency, that's what they're worried about as an entrepreneur. And if I can give them that set it and forget it type of a strategy, which we do, then it's going to take the pressure off, and they'll be able to sleep easier at night, right? So that's how you make a difference and stand out, by understanding who your ideal client is, communicating it on your profile, and making it all about your client. That's how you stand out. Most people think it's the opposite. Well, if I tell them how much I know about everything, I'll get their attention. No, people are going to be like, man, what a blowhard, right? Who the hell cares about that?
Well, as you're saying that, though, I mean, a lot of people are about the whole you got to give instead of receive. Even the Gary Vaynerchuk model of all of that.
Yep.
So, but you're even separating from that. You're saying, okay, you can why jab, just hook him.
Yeah. First of all, I love Gary V's stuff, and obviously he's done very well, and his methodology works, especially when it's B2C. However, when it comes to B2B, you're working with a different person. Consumers tend to be more heart-driven from the standpoint of, they want to be entertained, and if it feels good, they're making a purchase. I mean, that's just the psychology of it all. But for B2B, you've got, entrepreneurs who have the responsibility of families and a number of things weighing on their shoulders. So you've got to be sensitive to that. And if you can come in and communicate clearly, hey, listen, I get it. I know where you're struggling. I know, you're losing sleep at night. I got it. I was there at one time. One year we only generated 19 sales appointments, and I don't know how the hell we survived that year. But last year, we stuck with it. 426 sales appointments later. As long as you're able to communicate again, content's great. Don't get me wrong. It's great if that's what you want to do, but we haven't had to do that because we're so dialed into who our client is. So when we communicate something, the first thing they do is check you out online. They check out your profiles. And if it's consistently communicating, hey, I understand, what your challenge is, they're going to take a second look. And once you have that second look in the form of a conversation, then you can determine right then and there, hey, can we actually serve this person? If we can't, then we'll point them in the right direction.
That's a good point. Okay, so all of us have constraints that we have to work with. The marketplace, some of them process, some of that, goes beyond our control. One of them being budgets, right? So if you were to say, I have a current budget in place, where would I pull resources from and reallocate to, given where we are today?
As far as what, to generate more business?
To accomplish my goal from a marketing perspective, to deliver that sales ready lead.
Yeah, I think if a company doesn't have a line item already established, designed to either learn or to about the marketing space, right? Because it's one thing, I'm not saying that you have to take over and do it, but it's just learning the space, learning how to communicate your message in a way that's effective, in a way that actually will increase the likelihood of not a conversion, but a connection. So for us, we understand that a conversion is not going to happen if the connection is not there to begin with. So I think sometimes we want to jump to the cake, but it's like, hey, slow it down. It's a process. You're kind of courting, in a sense, that particular prospect, and it happens over time usually. So I would say from a business standpoint, if you don't have a line item that says, hey, I'm going to set aside this percentage for the purpose of learning more about marketing, then you're doing yourself a disservice. I would never just go ahead and say, hey, trust a marketer to take the reins for me, without learning a little bit more about just the space, learning about some of the ins and outs, because, the reality is not everyone is going to be, walking in with high integrity, right? You and I are high integrity guys. We want stuff to be done the right way because we actually care about our clients, and, results for them are huge victories for us. We feel that, and we know that. So for us, to answer your question, that's what I would recommend.
Well, and then the other flip side of that is if we remove those constraints, we remove those, things that are preventing us from, moving in a particular direction at a particular pace. We talk about, hey, unlimited budget, you can do whatever you want. What would you do?
I would hire a coach. I would get consulting at that point, because even then, let's say you had $1 million budget, right? I would invest it more so, especially when it comes to generating more business. I would partner with like the Russell Brunsons of the world that charge $1 million to consult, right? That's what I would do if that was where we were stuck at, for example, because I'm not looking just to create one strategy. It's, I'm looking at 5, 10, 20 years down the line. How can I go ahead and create that system so that it's something that can be easily managed and we know that it's duplicatable?
That's a very good point. Okay, so if I was sitting here in the position that I'm in today as a B2B digital marketer, and I have to do some of the things that are necessary, and I have tons, what is one question I need to be asking myself?
About lead gen?
I am not going to frame you or.
Okay. All right, got it. So so what's one question that I ask myself, right? One question that I ask myself always as a business owner is, how can I make my client's life easier? That's probably the one of the top questions that I ask myself on a regular basis. Are the systems in place, making my client's life easier? The set it and forget it. Are they experiencing that? Because ultimately, clients pay for results, but they're also paying for the experience, right? What's it like to work with this guy and his team, right? Do they actually deliver? Am I seeing the results that we discussed on that first call? So that's the number one question I ask.
David Ubeda, I've had a fun chatting with you today. Can you please share with the B2B DM gang how they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, so our website is mrdeu.com, short for MRDEU Global Media, which is the name of the business. So MR as in Mr. DEU.com. And man, again, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for joining us on the Digital B2B Marketer Podcast. And you absolutely, as a listener, need to do David a favor by rating and reviewing and sharing this episode on all your social platforms. David, thanks for joining us today.
Bye,
take care.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us. Go now to join the B2B DM gang in the B2B Marketer LinkedIn group, where you can connect with other B2B DM disruptors and get access to our B2B DM cheat sheets, checklist, and guides. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, please help by going to iTunes to rate, review, and subscribe. And share the show on all of your digital platforms. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode. And always remember, you can automate your lead capture, but you must lure your lead.